What's up, lover researchers? It's Kevin. Welcome back to another video of Method Mondays, a series where I talk about the pros and cons of different UX research methods and how to conduct them. Today, Contextual Inquiry. So, what is contextual inquiry? It's a type of field study where you observe your users in their natural environment and observe how they work. You can combine this with interviews to fill in any gaps that you might have. Hence, contextual, their environment, and inquiry, interviewing. Those of you coming from sociology or anthropology backgrounds, it's kind of like lightweight ethnography. You could do this in B2B settings or B2C settings. It's really versatile. When done correctly, you can learn about a user's environment, what's helping them complete what they need to do, what's slowing them down, why they do things, how they do things, who they interact with, the tools they use, workarounds or hacks that they do, and even more importantly, you can learn about what people don't do or use. When do you use contextual inquiry? Early on in your design process, when you want to identify inefficiencies and pain points in people's processes and use that opportunity to generate ideas for future projects. You can also use it when you want to learn how people do things in real life, and that's generally how I use contextual inquiry. Examples for when you could use contextual inquiry is when you want to study how people shop in grocery stores, find out how customer service reps handle problems, or why employees in one location take longer to finish something than employees in a different location, or just finding out how people are using your products in real life. So what are the pros and cons of this method? Let's dig into the pros first. The data are reliable because you're studying exactly what the user needs to focus on, not your assumptions. The second pro is, do your friends ever point out something about you that you are not aware of? Well, that's the great thing about contextual inquiry. With your fresh pair of objective eyeballs, you're able to see what people do when they're not even thinking about it. This is called tacit knowledge. Comment down below what weird quirks your friends have ever pointed about you. 3, you get a ton of detail in context as opposed to sending out a survey to try and understand what people do. When you're in their workspace, you get to see everything they do or don't do to accomplish something. 4, the participant is the expert here. You're watching and learning, and they're guiding you on how they do things. 5, this method is super flexible. You can use this method anywhere. I've done this in people's homes, offices, shopping malls, and grocery stores, and truck stops and whatnot. So if you wanted to study how doctors or nurses work, you might visit a hospital. If you want to study how people get around town, you might follow them from point A to point B. It doesn't have to be in only one spot. Last but not least, it's a great way to involve your stakeholders and get them into the field. Let's talk about some of the cons. Whenever you're traveling to meet users, it's time and money intensive. You may spend an hour or two with one participant, and if you need 10 participants, that's 10 to 20 hours, not counting the travel time you need between your participants. Secondly, logistics are heavy. A lot of preparation work is required, travel and scheduling people, and making sure you and your stakeholders are stress-free. And with these kinds of in-depth interviews and observations, there's going to be a lot of data, so it's going to take a little longer to analyze and interpret the results. What do you need to bring with you in the field? Well, pens and notebooks. I had one of those LiveScribe smart pens and notebooks that could also record audio, and if I tapped on a particular part of the page, the pen will let me know the moment I took the note and give me the appropriate audio clip associated with it. So it's very fancy. It was amazing, but I'm old school and I prefer good old pen and paper. If you think it'll help you in your work, I'll leave a link in the description below. It's a bit pricey, but maybe you can convince your boss. A pro tip is get one of those retractable multi-color pens so you can color code your notes. Make sure to have a camera to record audio and video, extra batteries and notebooks, and come prepared with your discussion guide and script. Now, how do you conduct one? I'm going to separate this into two parts. The first part is preparation, and the second part is actually conducting it. All right, for you badass UX leaders out there, what's step 0 in the UX research process? That's right, knowing your objectives, research questions, and what you're going to do with the data. Secondly, Make sure your participants sign your consent form before you travel out there. I don't think I need to explain why. 3, once you've scheduled and recruited the right people, assemble your team. Bring 2 to 4 people with you, preferably your stakeholders. You need 1 moderator, 1 note taker, and 1 media person to take photos and videos. This way, each person has a focus. You can't do it alone, and you probably shouldn't. Now, since your stakeholders might not be researchers, it's important to set some ground rules with them, such as training them on not to ask leading questions, not to butt in and take over the conversation. You do the moderating, not them. If they have questions, tell them to raise their hand and you'll get back to them later. Prepare your discussion guide. Remember, the discussion guide is just a guide. It helps keep focus on the main questions, but don't fixate on these questions. The point of going out into field is to discover new things that your participants are doing. So you'll want to leave it open enough so you can discover those things. 5 is planning, and I mean really planning out your day. There's a lot of logistics involved. If you have to travel in between locations, schedule time for you and your team to have lunch, or bring lunch with you. Do you have to rent a car, or take an Uber or Lyft? I know researchers who don't plan well, and their stakeholders just end up feeling really stressed the entire day. And the last of the preparation steps is to email your participants, call them, let them know what to expect. How many people are gonna show up, how long it's gonna be, what's in it for them, etc. Conducting. So say you're all done prepping, you're on your way to your participants' location with your team, you have your cameras ready, your notebooks ready, you're ready to slay. What should you expect? Participant bias is when people behave in a certain way because they know you're looking for that behavior. So to mitigate this bias, make your participants feel comfortable and don't tell them exactly what you're studying. Now, you're meeting your participant, you're at their door. Hi participant, I'm Kevin, lovely researcher. You can start with an interview about the high-level topic and their behaviors. Then you can go into observation. This is the part where you let them take the lead and show you how they work on what you're interested in. Ask a lot of questions and understand why they do things. Like, how did you decide to do X, Y, Z? Or, I noticed you do this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Then after your observation, have a wrap-up interview. Structure it how you think might best fit your study. You don't have to do it in this order. Because if you want to observe people at a restaurant, sometimes it's better to just observe first and then formulate your questions. Here's some pro tips. Keep an open mind. Be a detective. Look out for things they do or don't do, what they say and don't say. And take a lot of photos of their setup or systems. And speaking of taking photos, be respectful. You're in their space, ask them if it's okay to take photos of certain things. For example, don't take pictures of pictures that they have in their home, and especially avoid taking pictures of children, because then you're gonna have to get a different kind of consent form, and you wanna protect your participants and everyone around them. Okay? And another tip is, after your sessions, debrief with your team, take down notes and ask them what they learned, and see if you can adapt anything for the next session. Do you need to shorten it? Take out questions, add some new questions in, adapt it. So that's the rundown on the contextual inquiry method for UX research. I love going out into the field because it's just a great way to learn and get closer with your stakeholders, form a bond with them, and remember to have fun with it. If you found this video helpful, smash that like button and subscribe. I post all things UX research related to help you become the most badass UX leader. Mad love. Peace! The first part is